conference will now be recorded.
Call to order City of Trinidad Planning, Zoning, and Variance Commission regular meeting agenda, December 14th, 2021. Please stand for the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Armijo, Coker, here. Dalton, Moderano, here. Norris,
Here.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
Leone.
Here. Public comments on any issues not listed on the agenda. Public comments on anything other than what's on the agenda. None. Approval of minutes. Minutes of meeting November 9th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. A motion approved in a second. Roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Moderano,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
Leone.
Yes. Public hearing. Tri-Citicos LLC, 100 Liberty Drive, 2021, CUP-15, application for conditional use permit for location of 100 Liberty Drive, Trinidad, Colorado, 81082. Legal description. Trinidad Industrial Park, first filing, Site 1, continuous of 5.06 acres, more or less, aka part of the West 2 section, East 30, 32, and 63, former Wilson Supply Building. Staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. So the applicant, Carmadad LLC, is filing an application for a conditional use permit to allow for indoor retail of and marijuana cultivation. Not retail, an indoor retail marijuana cultivation facility at the location of 100 Liberty Drive, Trinidad, Colorado. The property totals about 5.06 acres, and it has one existing structure on it. At the moment, that structure is going to be used for cloning the mother plants, but in phase 2, it's going to be torn down and replaced with a larger structure. Phase 1 includes the construction of a 152 by 340 foot greenhouse, and will employ about 10 people. Phase 2 will involve the construction of a second greenhouse of the same size and will employ another 10 people. Phase 3 will involve the construction of a 50 by 100 greenhouse and the employment of an additional 5 people. The first structure will be utilized for cultivation, office space, drying, curing, and storage. The second structure is similar. During Phase 1, the existing 4,000 square foot building, which will be demolished, will be used to clone mother plants for Phase 1. Access to the property is from a cul-de-sac at the end of Liberty Drive, and there is emergency access provided all the way around the buildings. So for fire truck access, you need to get a truck within 150 feet of the furthest point of each building, and that is provided. Due to the impact of storm runoff, because these are very large buildings, the applicant is working on what's called a drainage report. That's a report that has to be stamped by an engineer, and at the moment that that is still in the process. Engineers have a backlog of work, so what we are we have looked at it, there is a drainage retention pond on site, but our engineers haven't been able to evaluate that and give it our stamp of approval yet. And so what we're going to recommend tonight is for a conditional approval of this application on the condition that the city receives and also approves the engineering and the drainage report.
So there would be, oh, never mind. Go ahead.
So that is the one thing about this application that is pending. The property is zoned industrial. It's also in the industrial park. The industrial park is designated as one of these places in Trinidad where marijuana cultivation is allowed. So we find that the use is appropriate for the site. The surrounding land uses include similar land uses to this. There are other grows in the immediate area. There's also the BNSF has its offices right there. So that's kind of the non-marijuana related use nearby. As we're going through the list of potential impacts, I did send you guys a update to the staff report last week, and that was based on the water and gas use, or particularly the gas use. The numbers that came in is that at the end of phase 3, they'll be using up to 11 million BTUs at a time, and that is likely not to cause an issue with our infrastructure because they have four boilers that are going to be providing heat to the greenhouses in the winter. On 90% of days, only one of those will be running. On the coldest 10% of days, approximately, the additional 4 may be called into service. So when we're going to be using these 11 million BTUs, is going to be on these coldest days and especially coldest nights of the year. And that's not going to cause a conflict. Where there is a limitation in gas service capacity in the industrial park, it's usually when the asphalt plant is running, because they use a large amount of gas and that can cause a drop in pressure. But with this, because of when they're going to be using that amount, it shouldn't conflict with asphalt. We generally don't keep asphalt in the winter. So.
Chris, can you hear? Are you able to hear, Chris?
Yes, sir, I can hear y'all just fine.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Good to do a sound check. Thank you. The other nuisances that could come from this staff has determined that they're fairly mild. Although it is in the industrial park, the applicant is going to include carbon filters for odors. There is no other significant impact other than perhaps the stormwater runoff. And so that's why the drainage report is this one important piece that's to be coming. Anyway, I stand for questions, and I think the applicant is he in here in person? Yeah, and the applicant is also here in person. So we can answer any further questions related to this project.
Okay. You want to come forward, applicant for this particular application, come forward, or if you've got 2 people, you can come forward and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm Matthew Mullen.
My name's Jay Carey.
Bring it on to us.
Oh,
Tell us what you don't have in your application here.
So I'm not sure other than the drainage report, which the engineers verified that we can for sure do it. It's just that they haven't had all the issues about actual stamp plans.
So you're talking about the drainage map?
Yeah, the detention and drainage plans. Right? So that was the only thing that we've been pushing for, hoping to have before tonight, but just couldn't happen because of the time that we started. So other than that, I do property development, and so this, our plans of what's expected and what's looked for is what we try to do, so.
So you understand then that it's a conditional use permit, and before you can get the CUP or the certificate of occupancy, you have to bring that to staff.
Right. And as soon as we have engineered plans for the drainage report, obviously that'll be submitted and make sure you guys look at that.
There was,
Right.
so the statement that you made, Mr. Tillman, was that they would be using carbon fans. So, but are you talking about in the greenhouse? Or is that more in your clone baby room? Because your greenhouse, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that gonna have big fans on the side of it for air moving devices?
Sorry.
So the carbon fans work differently in that kind of environment. So are you guys supplying a carbon fan setup? Or are you putting more of, I forget the name of the system that they've had some of these greenhouses put on there because it's a solution mixed with water that goes on the outlets of those fans that helps with the odor mitigation. So are we talking carbon fans? Because carbon fans are different in an area when you're gonna have a big exhaust fan on the side because it's pushing it right out the side.
That is exactly, you're correct, absolutely correct. And so it's a steel structure, so it's a traditional building, not so much like a greenhouse structure, but functioning as a greenhouse. So the intake side of it is a cooling pad, like a swamp cooler pad. The exhaust side of it is a carbon filter that goes into the exhaust fan.
Into the exhaust fan.
They were kind of comparing it to a home air filter, but with the charcoal filter instead of.
And that was something that we didn't want to do in the beginning because we didn't think it was expected with all the outdoor grows, but it came up and then it's a requirement of like, it happened type of thing. So
I think it's different. I think what's happening is there's a differential between indoor and outdoor growth. From a greenhouse to an outdoor grow. There's a big differential in there. I believe that's what it's looked at.
So that's why we just said, well, we'll do the carbon filters and do what we can.
Mr. Myron?
I'm okay.
Spain?
Well, Spain on go.
Chris?
Yeah, this is not really for the business. I'm all for this going forward. But I noticed on our water usage plan that it seems like in prime operation, we're looking at about 150,000 gallons per month for this business. And, I can see that we don't have any snowpack yet this year. So I think that we might better start trying to come up with an idea for water rights so that we can gather some water out of this drainage pond as a city to help supply these businesses, because these businesses aren't going to be able to go without water in the middle of the summertime whenever we don't have anything in the lake. That'll be a complete no-go. So I just wanted to bring that up, that 150,000 gallons times all the different grows that we have. I can see where we might be in a bind later this year, maybe if we don't, or next year, if we don't start looking into water rights and how can we gather some of this rainwater maybe up and reuse it maybe. That's all I had. I was just concerned with the water usage. Thank you all very much, guys.
I think you guys always have to use potable water, don't you? You can't get it out of a drainage pond. There's no way you can get that out of a drainage pond. The understanding that we've always had here, whenever we bring somebody forward, is if the city of Trinidad has to go on water restrictions, the first ones to be shut down will be you guys. We haven't had to do that. And we've had some bad years, but we haven't had to do that. And I think that's in the city of Trinidad when they give you your packet.
We appreciate
I think that's understood.
Yeah.
Everybody, not only you, everybody.
I was going to say, we appreciated that. That was one of the first things you guys had brought up when we came down here for our initial meeting with, I can't remember her name, Georgie, a long time ago. But yeah, that was definitely one of the first things you guys brought up.
Even looking at our weather now, I mean, it's not looking very promising this year. So.
Go ahead.
Well, so I was gonna also speak to that same point of water, and so I'm not familiar with the mechanism that he's talking about, so there's a formal system in that knocks, that prioritizes water for drinking over other uses?
No, they need to use a potable water.
They need water.
Yeah, they need
Well, I
water.
understand they need water, but in the event there's a shortage, I mean, so how do we address that? I mean,
I think the city has addressed it already.
Well,
Am I correct, Victor?
well, I would like to hear how the city,
Go
how
ahead.
the water is gonna be addressed in this issue. If there's not enough. what-
Guys, you want to address it?
Well, I'll address it inadequately at the moment. I'm not actually sure what the city's protocol is for the situation where North Lake runs out of water. I'm not aware of what exactly we would do if we would start shutting off valves in the industrial park, or if we would just ask people to use less. That is a situation I've not
I think
familiarized myself with.
they've addressed that. You addressed that when they talked to Georgie.
Yes.
I think that's been addressed.
Right.
I don't think we have to move it.
In talking with the water department, no red flags were raised. So the usage
There is
here
not.
is, as far as a grow goes, it's relatively low because it's an indoor grow. So the amount of water use is substantially less than we're outdoor grow. But yeah, the specific question of what happens if North Lake runs dry, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
So I could address.
Go ahead.
So one of the things, just like we have backup generator, obviously when power goes off, we have another plan. Same way with our water scenario.
We probably start hauling it.
Yeah. So we'll have an emergency tank that's expected not to use, but if we need it, if we got it, then we got it if we need it. So that's how that works.
But if they haul it, comes from the same source, correct?
Well,
Oh,
It don't matter.
Other, yeah, you get water where you get,
Go up the river, go up the highway.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions here?
I just want to ask about the gas situation, because we all know that area has suffered
Low gas.
low gas pressure for a long time, and we continue to more and more facilities are expanding, they're growing, and trust me, I know the city gas department, and I'm sure that everybody's looked at not only the concrete plant, because we already know that they're not going to be burning in the wintertime, heating up asphalt in the wintertime. But did we look at that area as a whole? Because we're dealing with billions of BTUs in just up in that area, and I would hold that true to be in our wintertime months, because we do have a lot of facilities out there, and some of them are pretty substantial. So does it have?
So part of this question, it's a very good question, is going to be answered actually in our next hearing.
Okay.
The next applicant is not going to be a user of gas, but the city is installing a gas line going through that property. And that brings us not quite all the way, but it brings us much closer from tying into the Walsenburg system to connect to Walsenburg and Aguilar. And when we do that, that's sort of in our long-term plan, then it'll fix the pressure issues in the industrial park.
Gotcha.
And so while it's not going to be fixed in the immediate horizon, we are making a substantial progress in tying it all together, and that's part of our next hearing. So yeah, at the moment this is a potential issue. Although a greenhouse in the summer is going to use a minimal amount of BTUs, and so that's not going to cause that.
Correct.
We don't foresee that.
Okay.
So it's a steel building or a greenhouse?
Steel building, steel structure, but functioning as a greenhouse as the roof part of it. The rest of the building would be like a warehouse type, have an actual structure.
So probably when you look at a building, it's probably something to compare it to would be THC, Trinidad Harvesting Company up there, because their roof is the only is
Okay. Any other questions?
That's all I have.
Anything else you want to ask or bring forward to us at this time?
I think we're good.
Excuse me, sir.
I can answer, but.
Okay, you can sit down.
Okay, Mr. Spence.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Comments,
I'm sorry, Chris.
brought up a question for me.
Go ahead, Chris.
Am I to understand that in the final of this project, their intent is to connect our utilities with another cities?
That's coming up in the next hearing, Chris. But yeah, the long-term plan from the gas department is to tie the industrial park into the Walsenburg and Aguilar system. And we wouldn't use that on a regular basis, but when the pressure drops, that would be a backup system to bring the pressure back up. And so it's not too relevant to this particular
Right.
applicant, but
It's not
yeah,
relevant at all.
that's the city's long-term plan.
Okay. You can sit down.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Staff, do you have anything else?
It was our understanding most recently, Mr. Mullet, that your drainage report was pending. It was coming anytime. Is that
Correct.
still true?
That's correct.
Okay, so we expect that the period where the conditional approval, should you approve conditionally, would not be very long.
Is he gonna have to come back?
No, and that's why we put him on the agenda for tonight, is because he's kind of done all the background work that he needs to do, except this report is outstanding. And the other option would be to have him come, wait one more month to make progress. And so I think this helps with his timeline, helps him be ready for the growing season coming up. And so staff, the recommendation from staff is a conditional approval pending the city's approval of the drainage.
Anything else for staff?
No.
Anyone here to speak for or against this particular application? Anyone here to speak for or against this application? I'll close the hearing. Commissioners.
I think you probably say,
Gotta have a motion here.
I'll move that we go ahead and support that.
So do you want to amend your motion to read conditional drainage, the CUP for conditional drainage and certificate of occupancy? Am I right?
Well, I think the certificate of occupancy is conditional on having the conditional use permit.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And so the conditional use permit wouldn't be issued until the drainage report.
Have a second? Second. Roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Moderano,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
and Leone.
Yes. Glad you guys came in. You have a pretty good detailed plan here. We get a lot of them. This is one of the more detailed ones. And thank you for bringing that for us.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Good jobs.
Moving on. Rocky Mountain Tilly subdivision, 2019 subdivision -06, consideration of a re-subdivision of a portion of the industrial park, Trinidad Industrial Park, first and second findings being located southeast quarter of the section 30 and east half of section 31, both of townships 31, South Range 63 West, 12 lots, 1 through 12, and 6 tracks, A through F, and Summit Lane right-of-way.
This is a project. This is a project. This is a project that has been in the works for quite a long time, since quite a while before I came on with the city. The applicant has gone through various iterations of proposals and phasing, and I think we are finally at the point, and I think there's a lot of excitement about this, of submitting the preliminary plat. for approval. The most significant part of the work that's about to be done in this next phase of work is the construction of a new road, which will be dedicated as a public road. That's a sunlit lane. It'll be about 1.3 miles long. That is the length of the property going north to south from El Moro down to the property line at the southern end of the property. The applicant at the moment is planning to continue the same use of the existing parcels and expand outdoor grows on a number of newly platted parcels to the south. In phase 2, it will likely be a continuation of outdoor grows, although there's some flexibility in their planning processes. They respond to the market at that time. That's maybe 2 years down the road when they would get to phase 2. The applicant is also dedicating an emergency access on the west side of the property. That would have a gate that the fire department could break in case of emergency. That would go about halfway through the property to a public drive, and then at that point, the emergency access road connects to Summit Lane. Part of the application here is also to move some property lines. Lots 5 and 6 right now are currently divided north-south as well, and so they want to remove that division and make those single lots. So there's 4 greenhouses right now. Instead of 4 greenhouses being on 4 separate parcels, it would be 4 greenhouses on 2 parcels. No change to the use would be involved in that, but that would be part of that. The total parcel is about 146 acres, and almost 75 acres of that is currently unplatted. So this, I think, brings into the city a lot of added value, not only with the road, but with the platting of these industrial parcels. And as we kind of look through the different requirements, the property is zoned industrial. The industrial park, as mentioned in the last hearing, is a zone where marijuana manufacturing and growing is permitted and encouraged. And so the use here, the intended use, is in line with what's envisioned for that. Summit Lane will have will be 6,600 linear feet. It'll be dedicated to the city upon completion, and that will include a 60-foot right-of-way and approximately 11 acres of land. One of the requirements for a major subdivision is a landscaping requirement. If we look at the staff report, where is it exactly? The landscaping requirements we have in our code would require them to plant, I think, 1,272 trees, and for a number of reasons. One is that the nature of the project is related to landscaping, or outdoor cultivation. Also, I think the way that our code was written with landscaping wasn't with the industrial park in mind, and other similar projects have not been held to this standard. So in our consideration, staff would like to recommend that we ask them to do a CDOT approved planting to prevent erosion along the road wherever there's earthworks, and that way the road will be secure for a longer time, and not to require the landscape requirements as they are written.
So you're talking seeding?
Yeah, so we'd like to ask them to seed the right of way, And wherever there's earthworks to support the road, that those be seeded with a CDOT approved seed mix as an erosion control measure.
Now, that's going to be out there by the new road.
Yeah.
And so that would be contiguous with the road north to south. And so it would be slightly different from what we might require in a suburb or in a housing subdivision where trees play a more important role in creating a character of the neighborhood. The character of this neighborhood while this applicant is the user, is going to be basically closed to the public. Because it's an outdoor grow facility, everything will be fenced and inaccessible to the public. And so the landscaping is not really something that would be enjoyed as a community.
But you're trying to create erosion, you're trying to cut erosion down, right?
Yeah, so we're addressing the practical purpose there, but maybe not the aesthetic function that it would play in other contexts.
So you're saying that the seeding will replace the trees?
Yeah. Moving forward, looking at some of the goals outlined in the comprehensive plan, we did not find any conflicts. I did sort of outline in the report here ways in which it's aligned with goals in our comprehensive plan. And all of the city departments have looked at Sunlit Lane in quite a bit of detail and have signed off on it. There is, from Public Works, there was one recommendation that was basically a methodology on how to improve the slopes on the lane in a few places, just to make sure that they're at 1% at all points. That's a pretty technical report. It's got some calculus in it, and it's just like how to make the curves even so that the road doesn't collect water. There was a series of comments from our water department. Most of those were critiques of some of the valves that they had proposed and asking them to do those up to city standards, which the applicant agrees to. The gas department is installing gas lines through this property through a utility easement both on the west side and underneath the road. And as I mentioned in the questions in the last hearing, the applicant does not anticipate using any gas. So the city is installing the gas line at its own expense for two purposes. One, for our long-term plan of solving the pressure issue in that part of town by tying into the Aguilar-Walsenburg gas system. And the other purpose will be if this applicant goes out of business or changes their business plan in the future, having a gas hookup in an industrial zone does allow for multiple future uses depending on where our economy takes us. So we feel that it would be beneficial to have an industrial park that's fully equipped with all utilities. And this is an opportunity to do that while the road is being constructed. Let's see. I believe those were all the comments from our different departments, all the issues that were raised and that have been brought to the attention of the applicant. Anyway, I think that is the content of the staff report that you guys have had a chance to look at. The report contained a very substantial number of documents that we linked to in terms of the maps and work that's gone into this. So I imagine you may have had some questions
Now, do I understand this right? It's gonna be a public road, but the public can't use it, is that right?
Well, the road itself will not be gated. It will be a public road, but it won't connect to anything at this time.
Well, it says in here it'll be closed to the public.
That may be a typo.
That's a typo?
All of the properties will be closed to the public.
Yeah.
The road itself will not be gated.
So that was a question of mine as well. I mean,
Yeah, no, that was my mistake. So
We wanna eliminate that piece in there.
That is incorrect.
Whatever we do, we wanna eliminate that.
Yeah, so the road will be accessible to the public, but it doesn't really provide access to anything that the public would have an interest in at the moment. It does tie in, it stubs into the bottom of the property, so that should there be a future use to the south, there would be a road connection available to tie in. So it does create the potential for a future network that becomes more robust. At the moment, that's not the case. The property to the south is not within the city limits, but it does have potential.
So future would be ingress and egress.
Egress, or if the industrial park were to expand to the south at some point, that road would then become a meaningful part of the network.
Would them, off of that road, did you also state that the fire department would have access into there? Would those be gates, like for their facilities? Would there be gates there so they can get in and on that property? Or are they gonna have to work off the main road?
That is a question the applicant can probably provide more detail in. My understanding is that each parcel will be separately gated. And so those are gates that will act as security gates, but that in the case of a fire, the fire department could break them. There are also fire hydrants installed going down Summit Lane. And so the nature of the property and the road is a little unusual at the moment because the road doesn't tie into an existing network, but it does create the possibility for future.
Okay.
There's also a utility easement being granted on the west side of the property. So water is going to be run kind of on both the east and the west side, as well as gas. And so yeah, it's gonna really be a significant expansion of our utility.
Because I read in there that they were also putting, not only with the gas taps, but there was also something that being done with water taps out there for, is that like the same situation in case somebody there would be gas and water taps?
Right. Yeah, so there'll be gas. The area is under San Isabel Electric, so that's not, so there's nothing to report on electric there.
Commissioner Spain has a question.
Yeah.
All right, I agree that asking them to plant over 1,000 trees is way excessive. But I don't think that asking them to plant no trees accomplishes what we were after whenever the city plan was written. You know, the idea of putting something up for tomorrow that lasts longer than a blade of grass was kind of where I think they were going with the trees idea. And could we not ask for a percentage of those trees to still be planted? I mean, we're talking about pride in our community and making our community look better. It shouldn't just be about making money and moving on. We should make what we have better, so that way there's something here for tomorrow. And that's what I thought the trees and all of that was about. Not to mention the erosion. I mean, if we seed this place, that's only going to last long as they water it and maintain it. The minute that water stops, those seeds will die, and that dirt is going to run away or be blown away. You know, there should be a happy medium to where we can, put something back. We can't always take. That's all I got.
I agree with him. I think we ought to go to at least a third. of the trees, which would be like 400 and some trees.
Oh, we can have that. We can talk about that when we bring it up.
Well, I think it's been brought up.
Okay. Well, I agree. I also would like to see some trees added because, I mean, as you improve that, just people have to work out there. It's an environment that they're going to be in, and to be able to sit underneath the shade of a tree and eat a sandwich would be nice. So, I mean, I think that we should hold some trees in the requirement. Just some beautiful.
Well, I believe that, Mr. Spain. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Spain. I think your point was more towards the erosion factor. The trees aren't just going to, die off and run down with the stream of water. Where if the vegetation that's planted isn't maintained, then we've lost our mitigation, so to speak. Our erosion.
My point was both points. It was about, putting something back up so that our area remains a beautiful place. And being respectful of our area. It's not always about taking. You can't, even people that strip mine are required to put the mine back and plant stuff over the top of it whenever they're done taking. So that's what I'm saying is, and I still think a third that's an excessive amount of trees. Let's talk about good quality trees that are going to be beautiful and last a while. And, they will last longer than a blade of grass. That's where the soil mitigation comes in is, a tree's life cycle is longer than just a season. A blade of grass is going to die. As soon as that water is stopped, that's it. And at that point, anything that we tried to do, whether it be for beautification, which a nice field of grass would be beautiful, or it be for soil mitigation, is gone. Because at that point, all you have is dirt. We got a lot of that dirt back where I come from, and it blows everywhere it goes whenever the wind comes and runs everywhere whenever the water goes. So, I think that we have a greater responsibility to the people that will come after us to make sure there's something here besides dirt.
Is Sky on the approval from CDOT? So does any of that? Does the city see any of that? And then who's going to be there after the fact to maintain that stuff to ensure, like if it was to, around some of the drainage, right?
CDOT seed mixes are usually a mix of native and drought tolerant seeds because they're used on highway projects across the state. And so those are places that are not irrigated or taken care of. And especially in that first couple of vulnerable years when the soil is still a little bit more prone to erosion, those seeds help establish vegetation and go forward. So the seed mixes are kind of intended to be used on areas that aren't going to be, say, active maintenance.
Your seed mixes. Your seed mixes. I'm familiar with a lot of seed mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Your seed mixes are always with some kind of fertilizers, and it's so many pounds per acre.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're leaving it in here. You're leaving it like general. I mean, you're talking about seeding, but how many pounds per acre? How much? You know what I mean? I'm just saying there's an aesthetic value there.
Right. So how we discussed it is to leave that to CDOT standards. So CDOT has standards for each bioregion, and I don't know exactly what those are here. But CDOT has developed seeding protocols and seeding standards, and so we're asking them to use a CDOT mix and CDOT procedures for that.
Because what's on an interstate and what may be out there is two different things. You have different seeds that will take with less water,
and they'll be substantial, and they'll grow. Then does it have to be drilled in, or is it broadcasted? You're leaving a lot of things out of here in general.
Okay.
As far as seed, you just don't go out there and throw seed. That doesn't happen. It ain't gonna take.
Mhm.
You have to drill it in, or you have to broadcast it. You have to cover it. If you don't have to cover it, if you drill it. I've
That'd
been
be,
doing this for
that would
40 years.
that would be a good question to ask the
We've got a
applicant.
sand and gravel operation, we got to do this.
I'm not sure if they've already thought through that step, or if that's something that they need to prepare for the final plat. So that would be a good question for the applicant. Maybe they can answer
I
that.
think that has to be understood in here
Mhm.
tonight.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can go ahead and go, and then we can bring them up.
Yeah. Let's see. I believe that covers everything that the city wanted to present to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Anybody here to represent this application? One or two people want to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioner. I have an echo. So let me see if I can fix it. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim thank you, Mr. Tallman.
Is there two people talking at the same time?
Jim, stop.
I've been coordinating.
Hey, Jim,
stop.
Jim? Stop. You're completely unintelligible.
You're gonna have to get out and then come back in.
It's like somebody else's speakers coming out through that.
So Jim, yeah, your echo was made you unintelligible. I'm not sure if you can fix that.
I had turned it off by.
Okay, it's working.
Hoping to take away the echo.
Who is this?
Yeah, Jim, turn off your speakers when you speak.
The two callers need to.
And if other people on the line could just mute themselves for the moment, that may help.
Somebody else is talking.
Can we do that?
So.
Okay.
I can't understand anything.
Let's see if he tries again if it works.
Okay, that
I
should
don't
be
even know who's
better.
talking.
Unmute.
This guy Jim
Yeah,
Farber.
Go ahead.
Okay, am I echoing now?
Go ahead. That's much better.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, sorry for that mishap here. Good evening, Commissioner. My name's Jim Thorburn. I'm the Land Use Counsel for the applicant. I've been working with Mr. Talman in order to bring this application to successful completion. Thank you, Mr. Talman, for the excellent presentation. He's been very good to work with. I'd like to introduce what we've done. We understand you probably have a number of questions. And so we brought our team forward here so we can answer the questions for you. I'd just like to quickly introduce who we have here. First is Tatiana Calvo of Columbia Care. She's the VP of Regulatory Affairs. We have Greg Murphy, Director of National Construction. Brandon Young, Manager of National Construction. Ryan West, VP of Infrastructure. We have Chris Carlstead and Michael Weil, who are the engineers with Brick Engineering. And so, have I missed anybody? I see Bob Hennessy on and he's our surveyor on this, so he can answer questions. And what we like, and you see, we got Michael Weil on this. So what I'd like to do at this point here is you've heard what we're trying to do. We are, even though it's now Columbia Care, we are a long-term member of your community. And I know Mr. Spain mentioned making money and moving on. We have no intent of just making money and moving on. We want to be a long-term member of your community. So we want to make sure that this is all a win-win for this. So what I would would suggest, unless you want to hear more just directly from us, that I would open it up to questions from the commissioners, to our team, and we have people that are pretty much available to answer anywhere from broad brush to very technical questions. Any questions from the commissioners?
Okay, so getting back to the erosion. Do you have a plan as far as how many pounds of seed or fertilizer per acre? And how is it gonna be put? Drilled in? Is it going to be broadcasted? Do you have a plan, some kind of a plan for that?
Chris, you probably can answer that question.
Chris Carlson, Rick Engineering. At this point, we do not have those details figured out. We are proposing proper erosion control to CDOT standards and CDOT seeding, but we will be looking at the seed mix that is proposed or that is recommended by CDOT, and then we will also be having our in-house landscape architect make suggestions to cater that better to the area. As far as application, we will further have to drill down into specific means and methods on that. But we will be looking to use industry standards for down in that area.
On other subdivisions that we've had here that's come before us, we have sometimes got the soil conservation involved here in Trinidad because they know the soils. Have you guys thought about doing anything like that?
Sorry, the Soil Conservation Service, did you say some personnel or some what?
Soil conservation here in Trinidad.
Right.
They're very familiar with the soils here. In some subdivisions that we've had in the past, they have got involved by the person that's doing the subdivision, has called them in to see what seeds they would need that would be water tolerant for drought conditions. Have you thought about doing anything like that?
We have not. We've not been engaged with them, nor have we been, nor have we been.
One at a time.
But are willing to contact them to determine what's best.
Bottom line, we want to get to a win-win on the soil conservation. That's we're not trying to shirk it or anything. That's just not a piece that at this stage that either staff or us are fully addressed.
Anybody else?
If I may,
Go ahead, speak, Chris.
it's very nice to meet all of y'all. Thank y'all for helping us accomplish this. I want to make it clear, I am absolutely for this project. And just like you, I'm looking for the win-win. I believe that in the past, we've had people do odor mitigation through planting sage. And I think that over time, they actually found that it was very hard to maintain these fields and keep them going. And I believe we actually took it out of a few of the CUPs as a requirement because they were having such a difficult time. Is that correct? Adriana, would you have that answer?
It was taken out on a prior.
I do recall some conversations, maybe 2016, 2017, about planting lavender or other kinds of plants. And I don't think it was really feasible over time. I agree that we're happy to look at different options.
The reason why I brought that up is because I want y'all to see the mountain that's ahead of y'all. A lot of this soil is really not soil at all. It's more little rocks, it's shell, and you put water on it, it runs right through it like a cup with a hole in the bottom of it. It's not going to you keep something alive. So I think by approaching the seeding idea as opposed to a tree with a good root system that can have some water put to it, y'all just shooting yourself in the foot, to be honest with you. I believe anyway. I mean, like I said, I'm completely for this, but you know, rather than putting some seed down that isn't going to grow and isn't going to last, and we're just going to waste water, couldn't we agree on 100 trees along the edge of the road that could be decorated, you know, maintained, and it looked nice? I mean, we could definitely, or there's other plants, you know, hedges, bushes. I don't believe we've had much luck asking people to grow seeds. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're open to all options within this. We don't want to take anything off the table there. And moving forward with your staff and all, I'm sure we can find and continue involved in this. Set that on the open record spot, and we'll try to get to that point where we can find that.
Jesus.
Can I interject in here?
That's not open to public comments yet. Well, let's see. It's good.
I'd like to see if we could somehow include some beautification, some trees along the road, some native plants along with the seed mix, to try to help to improve the appearance. Just something of that wording as one of the conditions.
We can do that.
Okay.
I agree with that statement. If we're putting in a new road, one thing that we can say out there is everything out there is existing infrastructure. Nothing is new, it's all been there. Now we're adding in new infrastructure based off of what can happen in the future. So if we're going to think about the future, then my opinion is then we should add, agreed, some of those trees in there because trees need time, right? They need time, they need to grow, to prosper, to do their thing. And do I agree that it's going to help with our erosion problem along with some of that grass? Yes, I do. That's where I'm going to go with that aspect. The next aspect, I did have a question on the new road. With your different parcels back there, are you going to have gates from that road that are going to, access gates onto your property from the new road? Just a general question.
I believe that there will be gates on the properties themselves, not on Sunlit Lane there, but the properties themselves. And Tatiana can probably expand on this. I believe that these are some state regulatory issues that we have to address and comply with, and it can't be open. Bottom line.
Yeah, that's correct, Jim. Just to be in compliance with state cannabis regulations, we'll need to fence off each parcel and then create a gate on our property to Sunlit Lane. And that gate will be alarmed and have cameras on it.
That answers my question. Thank you so much.
Mr. Monroe.
I think a third of them trees is not a lot of trees when you start talking about the acres we have here. I believe that there's a reason for 1,272 trees for that amount of area. And since we're putting the grass in or the CDOT growth in, I think using a third of the trees is not, I think, unquestionable. I think it's something that we should have, and I think the grass would be great because CDOT's very successful in what they do. And but I still think we ought to have at least 1/3 of them trees.
Mr. Beal?
I don't know what the number is, but I think the trees are important and the grass is probably, in my opinion, more important than the trees as far as the erosion goes. It works all over the place. Who's responsible for taking care of the trees and the grass and the road? When it's all said and done.
Mother Nature. Right.
Yeah, it gets given to the city.
Right. So
It's usually the developer usually the developer when he puts it in. The developer puts in either a drip system or something like that, like they did down in Cougar Canyon.
Okay.
That's usually the developer puts that in when he does the development.
So, but-
This ain't like a housing development. This ain't, as Sky said to us, sir, this ain't like a local housing development where you would do something like that. But still, if we're gonna put trees, you gotta have something in this.
Would it be more about erosion? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Would that be more about what this is about? Truly, is the erosion situation because we're dealing with a new road?
Well, this is the conversation you guys are having, you know, about what the value of trees is. You know, for erosion, the seed mix from CDOT is probably adequate. For other reasons, maybe aesthetic reasons, trees can be part of that. If we're thinking like pinon and juniper, the density at which those trees would grow in that area is much less than what we require as like a landscaping
I
requirement.
think you misunderstood my question. My question was, are we putting, is this a part of this CUP because of the new road? Why are we talking
But
about?
this isn't a
erosion?
CUP.
This isn't CUP.
Okay, sorry, but do you understand what I'm saying? Was that a condition due to the road?
No, it's actually unconnected with the road. So with, in our land use code, we have landscaping requirements, and that applies to any subdivision. And there's only one standard for landscaping. There's not like a separate one for industrial and a separate one for residential. It's just one thing, and it's about a percentage of the land that's dedicated to landscaping. And so in industrial, that's 10% of the land, which would be about 14 acres of land to be dedicated to landscaping. Now, some of the land is in natural washes that's not going to be developed. Does that count as landscaping? I mean, those trees won't be cut, and there will be some remaining natural trees. But as far as creating a landscaped area as such, you know, what makes sense for that? You know, how does that most meaningfully
No, I
apply
understand.
here?
I was a little confused, so you set me straight.
Right, and I think it's also worth considering in one sense, an outdoor grow is very highly resembling landscape. It's different in some ways, but it's closely related. So it's
Deals with carbon and plants.
Okay.
Sorry.
See where I got confused.
Expand on what Mr. Talman is saying, you are gonna have a lot of greenery out there.
But you're gonna have covered fences too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, I got a
That's
copy.
representing this subdivision to bring forward to us?
This is Glenn Bolter.
Wait,
This
wait,
is Glenn-
he has
this
to
is Glenn
open,
Bolter.
he has to open it up to the public. This is still under applicants.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I thought he did. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Anything else you want to bring forward to us, the applicants? Any more questions? Commissioners?
I'm good.
I think it's a very detailed report. I'm very content.
Okay. Staff?
At this time, make sure I'm correctly, yeah. At this time, staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat application. And the recommendations that you guys are making are apropos at this point because the next step in the process is the final plat application. So this will go to council. Council will also review it. And then it goes back to the applicants and they'll be back here perhaps next month with their final plat application,
So,
which should include
so
recommendations.
just all that we understand, whatever we do tonight, if we want to put trees in and seed in, whatever, we do that tonight, right?
Yep.
Just want to make everybody understand that. Okay, now, anything else for staff?
No.
Okay, now, to the public, anyone here that wants to speak for or against this application, you may speak now. If there's more than one at a time. Recognize yourself and your name, and you'll be allowed 5 minutes. You can go ahead now.
So, this is Glenn Moulter. Can I speak now?
Yes.
Okay. This is Glenn Moulter. I'm the co-owner of Purgatory Valley Construction and then president of Purgatory Valley Construction. I know a lot about this project because these gentlemen have asked us to bid the project for them. I know this project inside and out. I'm kind of refrain. I disagree with quite a few people. I'll give you a background. I know a lot about reclamation. I've done mine reclamation and well site reclamation for the last 25 years. Grass does grow. You just got to plant the right strains. I agree that you might put a few trees out there, but you see the variety of trees, the species of trees that grow out there. You better get the right species, and the only species that grow out there is pinon pine and juniper cedar and sagebrush. That's the type of environment that's prairie land out there. There is grass that will grow fine out there. It has to be the right strain grass. It has to be properly treated, but once it's watered in and once it gets up there, it'll be just like the grass that's growing out there now. And the erosion problems that they have out there can be taken care of with the right contractors and the right methods to do it. I don't believe that good big trees that people are thinking that it's going to look like a park will work out there, and it'll be a maintenance nightmare for the city, and you will have to water them trees constantly. So I just wanted to bring that in. This is a great project to bring money and tax revenue in for the city, and I want to tell these guys, thank you for giving us a chance to give you a price. I've been working with Brian Banks, your representative there, and if you have any questions about this area here, how properly to do it, Brian knows how to get a hold of us, and we'll help you get this figured out. We want you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moulter. Anyone else? Anyone else on there, Victor?
No.
Okay. Close the hearing. So commissioners, tonight, whatever you're going to do, you'll have to put it tonight. Number of trees, if you want trees. I don't know how you would figure out how many pounds of seed per acre that they would need.
We can go with
CDOT's
CDOT's recommendations.
That's
and
fine.
then just
We can do that.
and then add in some native plants.
I just want to know, whatever the motion is, you want to include what you want to include tonight. And I would want to know, staff, that you
take that misprint out of there,
Yes.
Sky. I'd want that taken out of there,
Mhm.
definitely.
Absolutely.
And, so now we'll look for a motion and include in the motion what you want to be presented. And we can amend the motion as we bring it forward if you want.
I'd like to say one thing is that, I know Glenn mentioned about the maintenance on trees, but there's trees that we can plant. They're all over these mountains, they're all over the place. And nobody waters them, nobody maintains them, okay? And if we use them type of native trees and give them a start, they'll take care of themselves. Okay? And I believe that if we just use, we don't wanna have to plant some spruce and crap that takes maintenance. We wanna plant something that doesn't need to be maintained, okay? We have them all over here. And I think that's what we need.
Water tolerance.
Exactly. Once they catch, they're gone forever, and you don't have to worry about maintenance, okay? We don't see anybody watering these mountains here, okay? It takes care of themselves. And that's what I think, the type of trees that we're gonna have to use. Something that you don't have to maintain them, but yet it'll beautify the community. We're not building a park, but we're building a community, okay? And that's what I'm thinking that we should be doing.
Another thing we have to think about is the size. What size of a tree, if we're gonna make this motion, what size of a tree? Sky, you might be able to bring that a little bit more forward to us.
What's the question?
Size of the tree. If we're gonna put trees in, what size are we gonna ask for? As far as the
Like a
diameter of the
like a
tree.
base,
Yes.
a base.
Well, our trees that live in this environment are gonna be a smaller tree.
Right.
I mean, so I don't think we put a lot of.
New ones, when you might get a new tree.
Right, I know, but we don't wanna do a lot of requirements, so
No,
we
right.
could phase it that they're gonna do the drought resistant, seeds, and then add,
X amount.
some drought resistant trees, a quarter of the, I mean,
I know.
you don't need to have a whole bunch of trees, I mean, you just need to have some trees, so.
Right.
You just
Well,
need
anyway,
a number and.
That's the kind of motion we need from the board.
I'll move that we go ahead and use the CDOT recommendation for the grass. And I move that also that we do at least 1/3 of trees, natural area trees,
Native.
native trees that doesn't need any maintenance, but they have to get a start. You can't plant any kind of tree without a start, okay?
So, you wanna talk about a number?
Is there even-
I'm gonna say 1/3 of them, which is 425.
Should we
Guys,
not film a plat for it, 25?
Chris?
Mr. Spank?
Chris, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. My daughter did a project, back a few years ago, so that she could get a scholarship to go to college. And it was a project with the Forestry Service. And, we got in contact with the Forestry Service and they gave us, I believe, 500 tree sprouts for free of charge. They were all in little test tubes about this tall, and they were all evergreen, the same type you're talking about, trees that were just native. I believe that if they were to get a hold of the Forestry Service, that they could probably get a hold of the same exact tree sprouts for pretty much free, I believe. And they could plant a whole forest out there if they wanted to. I mean, that's not what I'm asking. But, now keep in mind, these trees were little in diameter of tree trunk and were only about this tall. They took a lot of attention to keep them alive, and we just give them to people that she did the presentation, and they went home and put them in their front yard. So, I mean, there's a pretty big window of what can happen here. If we don't require them to do a 2-foot tall tree, then their cost margin goes way down to almost nothing. Surely, I didn't mean to say that. It just goes way down. It's going to be something for sure. But, you know, just wanted to make you aware of that the Forestry Service will give you sprouts for any project you want. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You proposed 425 trees.
A third of them, yeah.
Do we even know they have room to plant 425 trees?
Well, they got
Originally, they had
148
1,200.
Right. But it's gonna be, I don't know. That sounds like an awful lot. And
We haven't made he made a motion. We haven't had a second. The motion could be amended.
So one question is, do you count those trees that already exist that won't be removed as part of that, as part of those 400?
Absolutely.
You have to put that in your motion.
Let's, I'm thinking of a way to save the trees, to say that they're in a variety of stages of maturity, so you don't get a bunch of seedlings.
Right.
You don't want the seedlings. You don't need to put in a bunch of, redwoods either. So, I mean, you put in an assortment that will grow in a native, give them some parameters so that they've got professionals to figure it out. Give them some broad general parameters that they can work within.
Sky, is in that regulation about the trees, is there a certain size that you're supposed to use?
There may be. There's also a provision that you can reduce the number of trees that you plant if there's an existing tree, and that's based on the caliber of the existing tree. So
That's what I
something
was
that's
talking
like
about.
over 2 inches.
And I
exempts you
don't
from
have a
another
problem
tree.
with that, but I think in that regulation, there should be something to tell us that, what size of a tree or what maturity of the
That's
tree.
what I was talking about, the caliber.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head if that is a part of that ordinance. So I could go look that up real quick, or
I think we just ought to use whatever the recommendation is, okay? That's in my motion. We can, also in my motion, I want to use the trees that are already there as part of the count. And we have to understand that there's 146 acres, right? So that's a lot of acreage. So I think, John, that means that that's not a whole lot of trees for that many acres.
We're just talking along the road, though.
Yeah, and what is the easement from the fence line? Because that's where this is gonna go. It's gonna go outside.
It's a 60-foot easement that we have.
Before the road?
No, including the road.
Including the road. And then the road is proposed at how many feet wide?
Oh, it's
60.
well, the easement is 60 feet wide. The road is probably closer to 20.
Okay, so what would be, how many trees on that road?
Maybe 25.
If that's the only area that we're gonna put the trees, we're not gonna put them all over to the
It's
front.
6,600 feet long. That's what the road is.
That's quite an area.
They got a mile and 1.3 miles.
Yeah.
You could fit some trees.
I stick with 1/3 and use exactly what we have, even if they're inside the property. Okay?
Okay, so, Victor, how are you writing up the motion?
To approve with CDOT recommendations, with a third of native trees totaling
The third recommended trees would be 425.
Right, with 425 trees.
Some existing.
Some
With the
existing,
existing trees there.
Including existing trees.
so would that read minus the existing trees?
No, including
trees.
Huh?
Including the
Including trees, right.
So you would subtract the existing.
So you wanna read us the motion back?
To approve with CDOT recommendations with a third of native trees totaling 425 trees, including the existing trees on the property.
See,
And they have to be the native tree, right?
you're gonna have to edit that a little bit.
In other words, we don't wanna have to maintain these trees. I wouldn't say take, we shouldn't have to maintain these trees.
Trees should be of native origin.
Okay.
Yeah, native / drought resistant.
Victor, you'll have to add, the first part of your sentence is missing some words. The CDOT approved seed mix.
Seed mix.
Seed mix.
Okay?
Okay.
Read it to us one more time.
To approve with CDOT recommendations with their seed mix, with totaling 425 trees, including the trees that are, including existing trees. Trees being of native origin.
Now we're gonna have a size of the, we don't want all seedlings.
That's why I had asked for him to look up there have to have some kind of regulation on what size of the tree.
Or the age. I mean,
The
if
city
we
of-
just don't wanna have it be small trees.
The
you could
city
say-
of Trinidad requires a 3-inch.
A 3-inch caliber for street trees?
I don't know if that's for fruit trees or what it is, but I know that they require a 3-inch. I think I don't know what if it's for fruit trees. Maybe you better look it up.
I can go and be right back.
Why don't you go look it up?
Restroom. Where's the restroom?
All the way in the back.
Behind the back. Okay, thanks.
So now we're just adding the size.
Yeah,
Putting the size into it.
yeah. For some age, rounded.
the ones they planted on Main Street or commercial, they were fruit trees. And they had to be at least 2 to 3 inches around. Because we supplied some of them. Yeah, because you don't want to move the sidewalk.
Well, an inch is a big tree.
That makes sense.
Well, we measure 3 different kinds of trees by 3 different types of measurements. Deciduous trees should be 1.5 inch caliper.
Scratch that.
Coniferous trees should be 6 feet tall, and shrubs should be 5 gallon. 5 gallon pots.
How about their designers just require an assortment of, so many 5 gallons, so many 1 inch trees, and boom, go.
I mean, I think it might be appropriate. None of our code says who should plant what trees, or doesn't get down to that level of management of somebody else's project. So we might come up with a kind of conceptual goal and ask them to achieve that. But I think on the decision level of exactly which trees or how they go about making their decision, that might be best left to the applicant, because I think, if we make a decision here that's very, very detailed, it might verge on arbitrariness.
I agree. I agree with that. And the thing about this, what is going to be more practical as far as trees is concerned, is what we need to go. Okay, we don't want to go with something, especially some of these cottonwood trees that need a ton of water. Okay, and they are natural around here, but if you notice, they're all around where the water's at, right around the river and stuff like that. So we're not talking about that kind of natural stuff. We want something like in the hills where they don't have the water that we have down in the river bottom and stuff like that. So I think we can figure that out without having to make a detailed situation out of it. But I think it could work out to where we can have something that will not only beautify the area, but also maintain the erosion.
Okay, Victor, read it out one more time.
To approve with CDOT's recommendation of seed mix with 425 trees included on the property and trees of native origin.
We should make additionally 425 trees, because that's not part of
Additionally,
CDOT.
400.
That's separate from what CDOT would have.
Additionally, 425 trees.
So are you saying trees and plants, or just trees? Just shrubs and trees?
Well, what are you saying?
What's up to us? What's up to us?
I mean, I think it makes more sense to do shrubs and trees.
Yeah.
From a cost point, because
Right.
a 6-foot tree is not a cheap tree. You can get shrubs much cheaper. You can get drought-resistant shrubs that flower and are also very nice. Will do the same thing, and it's going to be a lot more cost-effective for them. So I would say shrubs and trees.
So
I
a
agree.
mixture of shrubs and trees.
Leave it up to them.
Yeah.
However works out
Okay.
best. Is
Whatever looks better.
But at least, what do you want? At least how many trees?
Shrubs and trees.
Yeah, let's just do a 50-50 shrub and trees.
Mr. Amigo?
I'm okay with that.
It's 212 and a half.
Are you all right with that?
Well, I don't want to. Just trying to think of an easy way to give them some parameters, but give them the freedoms to do that. So, I mean, the big thing we want to see with a combination of an assortment of 5-gallon shrubs and 4 foot tall trees. Then that gives them.
Well, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, but I think part of it is we have to be careful. We don't need
Get too much.
We just need to keep it. If we want trees or shrubs, then okay. So you said 425. Then why can't? Then I think the next said after that was split it down the middle, so we could have 212
Wow.
and a half shrubs. You know,
I mean, it's worth pointing out that when we're planting trees in the ordinance, it doesn't specify if you have to do conifers or deciduous or shrubs. You know, it's all of those count towards landscaping. So I mean, if you want to go to the level of detail of saying how many shrubs and how many trees, that you can do that. I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Let's say 425 trees, and they could substitute if they want, it's up to them, some shrub.
Victor, you're gonna have to rewrite that.
That way we're not pushing them.
He's getting that. Okay.
So, Tony, you want to state the ordinance as you understand it, so Victor can kind of get it written correctly?
Okay. I move that we go ahead and approve this project, but with the CDOT grass seeding,
Recommendations.
grass seeding, and then also 425 trees that they could also substitute with these trees some shrub if it works out for them. We'll give them the perimeter to do this.
Mr. Spain?
Mr. Spain?
Could we not approve the CUP with condition that they go forward, and Mr. Glenn seemed to be very knowledgeable. They could go forward and come back to us with what is CDOT's recommendation for seeding, how is it gonna work, what are their trees gonna be, how is it gonna work, what are their shrubs gonna be, how is that gonna work? I mean, I think we're going way too much into detail. This is kind of their details. We just need to have them go get the details and bring them back. At least that's kind of how I feel about it.
1/3 with 1/3 the plants or shrubs at their option. So we just.
That's what I just told you.
Yeah, 1/3 plants or shrubs at their option, and then.
Yes.
I think that gives them enough freedom to do it, because they can do plants or shrubs, and then they can put it in as they see fit.
Because this still has to go to city council, and
Right.
it's still gonna come back here. We just need to make sure that this is written in now, so when
Right.
it goes to city council, that's a part of that.
That's right.
My last,
Go ahead, we're gonna let him read it.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Approve with CDOT grass seeding recommendations, including 425 additional trees, including 1/3 shrubs.
Trees or
No,
shrubs.
Trees or shrubs.
Trees or shrubs.
Okay.
Wait a second. You said 425, including 1/3 trees or shrubs?
No, the 425 is 1/3 of the landscape requirement.
Is that how it's worded though?
Is that how it's worded?
Yes.
It's 425 trees, and they can
Include, yeah,
substitute
substituting
shrubs.
What did you,
with shrubs or trees.
what'd you say for 1/3?
So 425 additional trees, including
Okay.
1/3.
That's where it's different.
No, 1/3
Is
is
the four-
how we came up with.
It's the 425, right? Okay. Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, just read it. Damn, one more time, Richard.
To approve with CDOT grass seeding's recommendations, including the 425 additional trees, including trees or shrubs. Right?
Additional
Put in
trees
there
or shrubs.
425 trees, but can substitute shrubs.
Shrubs, right? That's the same thing.
Or trees or shrubs, it says this. You've got it.
I think we got it.
All right.
Okay. Second, Norris. Norris, you second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, you guys got it straight now.
I got it.
Everybody understand?
Yes.
Okay, roll call. I got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker, Yes. Moderano,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
and Leone.
Yes.
Exhausted.
We're done with
We're
that.
done, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your consideration on all this.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on.
Let me make sure. Diane Sanestimo was saying she's having audio issues. Diane, are you able to speak?
I think it's repaired. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to mute you again until.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay. Next on the agenda. Southwest Development Group 2021-VR-15, consideration of a variance of roof pitch for 5 lots on Onondaga, 204, 208, 216, 312, and 321 Onondaga. Parcels bought as one property legal, City View Heights, Tract M, Block 3, Lot 11, Block 4, Lot 2, Block 4, Lot 3, Block 4, Lot 5, and Block 4, Lot 9. Contiguous square feet of 129,324 square feet, 2.969 acres. Staff.
This applicant is moving forward with plans to build 5 new single-family homes in the City View Heights subdivision. The City View Heights subdivision has a variance for the whole subdivision that they can have roof pitches of 512 compared to the city's 612. This applicant is requesting a variance to allow these 5 homes to have roof pitches of 312. The applicant is requesting variance for a number of reasons. One is, the primary reason is because the cost of adjusting the roof from 312 to 512 for these homes would be about $8,000 in total, which is a cost you'd have to pass on to the buyers. And part of the reason for the significant cost of going from a 312 to a 512 is because of the nature of construction. So these are not stick-built homes. They're constructed off-site and then assembled on-site. And so that adds an extra engineering cost to allow for the 512. The applicant did go within a 0.6 mile radius of the of Onondaga Street, and said that there are and did note some 312 roof pitches in the area on at least 10 other addresses. Those are included in the applicant's letter. And so the applicant contends that the 312 roof pitch would be consistent with conditions that are present in the neighborhood. The city did a survey for unconnected to this application a while back, and did find a number of other 312 roof pitches in the immediate area. I think the number was 2 or 1. It was 1.
1.
And as well as a few others that were also under 512. So each proposed home includes about $30,000 of upgrades in design and other features that were optional from the manufacturer. And these include kitchen appliances, flooring, ceiling fans, driveways, fencing, master bedroom windows, 6-panel doors, and external shutters. And so the applicant contends that, well, these upgrades do add value to the house, and they come at a cost. The additional roof pitch comes at a cost but doesn't add additional value to the house. So it puts an undue burden on the applicant. So you guys have the site description with the parcels outlined. But these are currently empty lots in the neighborhood, and so they will be filled in soon. The zoning in this area is medium density residential, and although medium density could accommodate different types of architecture, these are going to be single family homes on fairly typically sized lots. So as you guys look at the criteria for approval of a variance, the one criteria would be that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or exceptional topographical or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. And while the properties are not particularly unique, the nature of construction of these is not typical in the area. Most of the homes there are stick-built, and so the extra cost that would apply to these homes wouldn't necessarily apply neighborhood-wide, or historically wouldn't have applied neighborhood-wide, I should say. The second criteria is that the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. And there the applicant contends that the homes in the neighborhood are stick-built, and so the condition of raising the roof at additional cost is unique to these factory-built homes. And that because physical circumstances, conditions, property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of the zoning ordinance. So the additional cost of $8,000 for each home does create an extra burden. It does create an extra cost for what these homes will sell for in the end. And it could be a barrier to development if we impose an extra cost that doesn't correlate to an added value. So in the interest of having these lots developed, staff finds that it's in the interest of the city to allow for the variance. And that such an unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant, so that the applicant's not the cause of any hardship claimed. And so the applicant purchased the subject properties to provide affordable homes in Trinidad area, and the roof pitch requirement would significantly increase the cost of construction without increasing the value of the homes constructed. Now, in the case of a variance, an unnecessary hardship only exists when it's through no action of the property owner. That's just excerpt from the code. And the fifth condition is that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, the historic preservation district, or other district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. The applicant outlined their intent to preserve the character of City View Heights and pledges to conform and maintain the current neighborhood single-family character, and the lower roof pitch on these homes is consistent with other structures that can be found in the neighborhood. The applicant documented 10 homes within a 0.6 mile radius that have a 312 roof pitch, and the building is in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood. The staff review of other homes in City View Heights resulted in finding that 9 homes in Onondaga have a 512 roof pitch. two have a 412 roof pitch, and there's currently one home with a 612 roof pitch and one with a 712. On San Pedro Street and City View Heights, there's an additional 7 homes with roof pitches below 512, including one home with 312. Adding some variation in roof pitch to a street that already has some variation will not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood character. Additionally, the difference between 312 and the existing homes on the street with a 412 or a 512 pitch is slight. The variance, if granted, since the sixth condition is the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that would afford relief and the least modification possible of the zoning ordinance, which is in question. So additional cost is incurred at every increment above 312 for these homes. And so the request for 312 is what the applicant is requesting, because that's what grants the financial relief of the difference between 312 and 512. Staff also finds that the intent of the ordinance for a 612 or the variance for a 512 in City View Heights was not to increase costs on single-family homes. So this variance, if granted, wouldn't really undermine the intent of the ordinance. So staff recommends approval for the following reasons for each of the 6 criteria. 1, there are no unique physical circumstances or conditions. There are unique physical circumstances outlined, so I guess that's kind of repetitive to read this, but it is in the report. And I will stand for questions now, and the applicant is here to follow.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I put most of these houses in,
Okay.
okay? And the majority of them are not site-built houses. There's only 5, I believe, that are site-built houses, and they were rural development. And they're all 512.
Okay.
Okay? And the 2 that they say that is 412 are not 412. I put them houses in. They're 512. But whenever you buy a manufactured home, there's always a variance of the different factories and how they come up with 512. Okay? So every house in this development is 512. It's considered all 512. Now, if you wanted to put a house above 512, then the ordinance did have a problem with that. If you have, I put one in there on San Pedro that's a 612, and there's another one that's a 712. So, and the cost for a 512 versus a 312 is ridiculous, okay? I know the costs are higher now than when I was doing this work, but it's not nowhere near $8,000, okay? We could call a factory right now today or tomorrow, and I can prove to you that it's not that much cost in the difference. Okay?
I'd like to intervene here. We're up here not to determine any monetary benefits for anybody. We're up here to enforce code. So talking about money or what, that has nothing to do with us here. When I became part of this board, one of the main persons, when I was sitting here or there, that was one thing that we were told. You're not here to determine monetary benefits for anybody. You're here to enforce code. I want everybody up here to understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Now that's, and the thing about it is, we're gonna leave the cost out of this. What about the people that already was forced to do a 512 that are living already in that area? If we gave him or this person the right to go ahead and do a 312, what is it gonna do to the people? And how are they gonna feel about having a 312 next to them that they were forced to have a 512?
didn't that just happen? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but didn't that just happen 4 years ago? 3 years ago, something like that? And then we're forced to do the 512s.
Right. That's the house that, if you look at,
So we did, what they did
if you look at the,
because they backed out of the other.
right. So I forget what you see here. It would have been, it would have been,
217.
217. If you look at that on what you gave us, and you look at the houses, they're all in a row. That house is set back. That's the ugliest house in the whole neighborhood. It makes that whole neighborhood look different. Instead of having the same setback, that house is set back further. What happened there? Couldn't tell you. It's up to the city to figure that out. The house has been there for about 3 years. You gave us this report. Other than that, all the houses, this has nothing to do with the 512, but I'm just saying. They all them houses there have a 512. Except 213, and he's a 612. That right there is, I don't know what happened there. Who dropped the ball there or whatever. It has nothing to do with this part. We're talking about 512s. But in that neighborhood, going back then, I asked if I could bring this up tonight, and he said it was fine because it's pertaining to this. We had a person here that was in Sky's position, Sky in your position, her name was Tara Marshall. And when this all came about, I went and got a person that does nothing but roofs here in Trinidad, a contractor. He's been here for 40 years. And I had him go with me, not telling him what I was wanting to do. I said, I want you to point every 512 roof out to me. And it took us about 2 hours. And we went every street and found out there is a 312 down below as soon as you come in, off of San Pedro, I think that is, and that's not in the development.
That's right.
That's a 312. You got another house, and then you got another one that ain't in the development. That one there's 412. But other than that, they're 512 or more.
That's exactly right.
So I just want to bring that forward. But as far as a monetary benefit, that we're not here for monetary benefits or economics. We're here to enforce code.
So the list that I have of the roof pitches in City View Heights that's included in your packet, that was something that our building inspector went out and did, and he had a tool to go measure the roof pitches, and so that's how that list came about.
When this came about, we can go back into the minutes. When this came about, they got the minutes on this. I pulled Tara Marshall on this. He did not even go out to the right development. He did not go out to the right development, and it's in the minutes. He went out to a different development. So when this all came before us, that ain't the development he went to. Unless you did it recently.
Do you know when Ken put that list together?
No, I'm not offhand, I wouldn't know.
Unless you did something recently, within the last year, he did not go into development. He was in the wrong development.
Well, I mean, it's a curious thing to say because each roof pitch is associated with an address, which would be hard to do if you were in the wrong place.
Well, but why does this say Los Animas County Assessor's Office list? If it was provided by our building inspector, then why does our list say Los Animas County Assessor's Office list? Just out of curiosity.
I personally went with Kent.
Oh, did you?
And we were in that development. So,
During that time, when Tara was here?
So
So that was after we brought it up then.
So the sentence is that the Los Animas County Assessor's Office lists 48 residences within City View Heights, and so this is a list of those 48. So anyway, this is a list that Kent put together.
Go ahead, Mr. Span.
And you were
Go ahead, Chris.
I was with Kent.
So how long ago?
Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so question about the construction. You say that this is not a stick construction. Are we not talking about prefab trusses here?
No.
No, this isn't going to be a prefab truss house?
What do you say?
Because if it's a prefab truss house,
No.
it takes about 10 minutes to change the blueprints and about no time at all to build them different.
What's that?
He's saying to
The
modify.
trusses for the roof. If this is a prefab truss house, and it will be brought in on trucks, prefabricated and assembled, if this is almost no change at all. I draw blueprints, this truss design. Most lumberyards will actually do a truss design for you for free if you buy the trusses from them.
So Christopher, I believe you're correct. I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly the category of house, but the design could be changed. It just comes at a cost. And so,
Well, I'm telling you that cost is wrong.
Well.
Exactly.
I mean, if it is a prefab truss house, then that they already have these things built most of the time in the lumberyard. It's just a matter of picking out the 512 as opposed to the 312. And then you have to pay for the extra material. But, we're not talking about that much material. And like Mr. Leone said, we are not supposed to make money for the person or save money for the person.
Right.
We're not supposed to consider that. The minute that we start considering the financial, then we overstep into another area that's just not for us. I agree that we're here to keep our code. People work very hard. Lots of hours went into them working late and work sessions. I caught the very end of this, and all we do is change it. All we do is time and time again, we put their work aside and we change it, and we change it, and we change it. When are we going to stick to the code? That's what I want to know. And if we're never going to stick to the code, then why did we waste our time doing this?
Exactly.
Why don't we just make it up as we go? Because that's all we're doing. It makes no sense. We're double tapping this for no reason at all. I mean, we got to figure this out. And like I said, this is a prefab truss house. That is not that big of a deal to change from a 512 or from a 312 to a 512.
Chris,
if I'm a neighbor and I've been held to a standard and an entire neighborhood has been held to a standard, I am not going to understand why you're stopping that. I mean, I understand we need houses. I do. I know that we have a housing shortage, and I am very sympathetic towards that, and I want us to build and grow. But at the same time, we have to stick to what we said we were going to do.
So
that's all I got.
The applicant would like to correct the terminology you're using. It's not a prefab truss house. What would be the
IRC factory built.
It's an IRC factory built house.
And the trusses have to actually be engineered to go on a hinging system.
We'll bring that up when they come up. And he can understand that, he can pick that up.
Okay.
All right?
Most 512s can't make it under the bridges. So they have two different types of, depending what factory you come from, they either have a hinged roof or they have a pot that sits down inside of them and they put them in that way. There's two different types and most of them are hinged roofs, okay? They flop them down as they're going down the road. When they put them on site, they hinge them back up. There's not a whole lot of cost involved. And again, we're not supposed to worry about cost.
Right, we're not going to worry about cost here, period. Okay, anything else?
So, I mean, I think one consideration that's important here is just what the intent of the ordinance was, and whether this circumstance falls within what the intent was. So when it was written, I think there was an intent behind it, and was the intent about projects like this. And I think I will allow the applicant to answer questions, unless there's anything else for me.
Okay,
I have a question.
now,
Yeah.
go ahead.
What was the intent?
I've heard some rumors through the grapevine here, but I think the idea was not really aimed at single-family housing. It was trying to prevent something else. And so this, as a single-family housing, I think when the ordinance was written, maybe 15 years ago, this type of off-site manufacturing wasn't very common. And so it really wasn't considered.
I'm gonna answer your question too, and I think I'll go with Sky. We went through this in 2016, and we increased it to 612. That's what the ordinance is now for the city of Trinidad. It's a 612. This here was granted at 512.
Right.
When the development came in, and I don't know what year that was, Mr. Matarano.
Yeah,
But anyway, right now, the city of Trinidad's code is a 612. All right.
I put the very first houses in that piece.
Anyway, okay. Okay, now, open the hearing. Somebody here represent this particular application, come forward. 1, 2, or 3 persons. State your name.
Diane Simon Stevens.
Hang on, no, Diane. This is the representative of the homes.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Good evening. State
It's a
your
little
name.
difficult to hear.
State your name loud, because we got a person on there that's on the board that's doing virtual tonight.
Nicole Burnett.
Francisco Argueta, Southwest Development Group. Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Okay, present what you want to present to us.
Well, first, not to address costs, but the costs have gone up, and we can call Champion Homes to anybody who orders a home. There's an increase of $5,000 and an increase, I was told, to the factory of $3,000 for a total of $8,000 per home. That's today's prices. I have no control over them.
We paid that when we were putting in the 3 houses that we
We've
did
already done 3
before.
homes there with a 512 pitch.
Right.
Okay. We were
So that
considering-
was the increase in cost, but I understand that it's not a part of the discussion.
Yeah, it's a sunk cost. We're not trying to pass it on to the consumer or anything. It's just a sunk cost. We were looking at the houses on this side of Onondaga.
So are we looking at the north side or?
Right, looking south towards Fisher's Peak. And I've talked to some of the neighbors there. They said, yeah, a 512 roof pitch, because I discussed with them, versus a 312. They said that gives us a better view of Fisher's Peak. I said, well, maybe the houses on this side of the street that we did with a 512 are okay. The houses on that side of the street, if we did a 312, it gives the neighborhood more of this look than just a barracks look, right? So we were trying to just give it a little more character, a little more of a look, because it's my understanding that, I guess, the homes you put in about 28 years ago or so, 22 years ago now, since then, nothing's been done in this neighborhood. There's over 35 lots that have just been sitting there with all the infrastructure there. And nobody has done anything in 22 years. We've come along, we did the first 3 houses, we've already committed to these 5 homes, whether you approve our variance or not. We've committed to these homes. And we've committed to the city of Trinidad and to this community. We've done so since 2013 when we moved here. We've bought commercial properties in town. We've tried to be a part of and become a part of it. We're not trying to create any kind of animosity, right? I personally, when I was in Denver, owned a real estate company and mortgage company. I was a trainer for Century 21 and then Metro Brokers. As far as value, you're correct. I've never known an appraiser to sit there and say, because the roof is 312, 512, 612, whatever, the value of the whole house or the appearance of the house is affected. It's more about square footage, rooms, bathrooms, the amount of land you're on. So, with your permission tonight and with your approval, we would like to move forward. that's my case, really. If you have some questions for me, I would be more than happy to answer them.
I just, the part that I have a problem with is the problem with the neighbors, and I know you said you talked to the neighbors, and there's no neighbors here except for one. And, but I believe that wasn't supposed to be a 612, now we're at the 512.
Right.
And I don't believe that we should go any lower than that. My opinion is that it's like a slap in the face for the people that were forced to do a 512. Okay, and that's what I'm saying. I think the ordinance is what we need to stay with, and I think we need to keep the structure of the 512 in that division.
So at one time, the city went from a 612, approved a 512, but now they won't approve a 312. Therefore, I see that as a capricious and arbitrary decision.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
I don't have anything just yet.
Sam?
Personally, I'm on the fence. I'm not truly on the fence. I'm more leaning towards the code, number one, how it was written. I personally don't want to see where we're dropping our pitch lines in the neighborhood. I lived in that area and was up there often, and I appreciate that majority of the homes up there all kind of fall in, they all kind of fall in the same suit, which I believe was when we look at the code and we look at when I would drive down some of the old streets, let's say the houses that have been here for 50 years, 75 years, we're going to see a lot of variation because back in the day, was there really a code? You know, I don't really, there might have been, but how far was it enforced? Now we're in days where we're definitely more enforceable, and we're trying to stay in tune to looks of a community. So when I look at it, what I'm going to call that is the development. The development there, when you travel 2 blocks down, you're going to see a lot of variation. To me, that's over there. We're in the development, and me personally, I want to see that development kind of uphold the same kind of value all the way through it. Again, I'm not going to talk about cost. Cost means nothing to me. But I kind of just feel like that area, that development, we need to keep just a certain line all the way through that thing. You know, that's my opinion. I'll have more, but I'm not quite there yet.
My questions would deal in, how did you contact the other neighbors and how did the other people in that development feel? Because actually, they're the ones whose opinion is the ones that I think is important here, so.
Provided the requested information and the needed information to Sky, and then they were all contacted by mail. A lot of the neighbors, some of them walked the neighborhood.
A lot of people also did approach us during construction, and we did talk to them about that. And the people we talked to, it was okay with them, but I'm not gonna represent that for everybody. But honestly, I don't think it's super important to them to come here and say something about it.
Well, I was.
So that's why I have to, you know, not a lot of people are here.
Right. But, okay, but they were notified, so in answer to my question, the people in the neighborhood were notified that there were of the variance by mail. And,
Adjacent homeowners.
and what?
Adjacent.
Jason.
Okay, for me, that code was made for that particular, it was already dropped to 512 when that particular development came in. It's been 512. And I don't see, I've been up there, I don't see where a 512 roof pitch on the north side is gonna do anything, because you're only gonna have one house over there anyway. Am I correct?
Right, it's on the south side, so
Yeah.
that the houses on the
The
north
houses
side
are,
aren't interrupted.
the other houses are on the south side.
Right, so
I
they
don't
don't
see where that's gonna hurt anything from Fisher's Peak.
No, it helps the people on the other side of the
on
city.
the north side.
But I'm just saying,
And the 3 houses we previously put in were on the north side.
because 217 never got a letter. You know that. 217 never got a letter. The neighbor did, but he didn't.
I don't think we were required to, I think it was only the adjacent.
Only the
Most of them got a letter.
the abutting property
So he's-
owners.
So
we sent-
216 is
yeah.
right across the street from 217.
It clearly states the abutting properties, so we provided
Okay.
a list to
Well, anyway.
of all abutting properties.
That, it was developed at a 512. It was reduced to 512, pardon me,
From the 612.
and from a 612, right. And we're not here to, I'm gonna re-emphasize that, we're not here to any monetary benefits whatsoever. We're here to enforce code. That's what we're up here to do. If you have anything else you want to bring forward, you can.
Not at this time.
If not, you can.
Can I ask one last question? The 312, will the 312 question handle the snow, or snow levels?
Yes, actually, the state of Colorado only requires by code, like 312 or above roof pitch to meet any snow load possibilities in the state. As of recent, we really haven't had a whole lot, but I wish we did.
Yeah. I'm sure that.
We were just looking for the aesthetics of the neighborhood. We're looking to better the neighborhood since no one has done anything in 22 years with that neighborhood. There's 35 lots in that neighborhood that we're actually potentially looking at developing. But that being said, being allowed to have a little variety, whether, we might order some homes with a 512, some with 312, some with, it's a matter of trying to beautify the area and make it a better place for this city. We've even taunted the idea of presenting a gated community for there, because that would increase not only value, security, but accessibility for a lot of neighbors. I think that's something, after having done developments in Aspen, in Vail in the 70s, Aspen in the 80s, Denver in the 90s, I think that those are the kind of things that really start to attract certain people to a city, to a town that Trinidad is becoming. I mean, I envision this as being one of those areas in Colorado that has not only been able to attract people because they've been able to provide housing, but also been able to grow. We now have Fisher's Peak State Park. We now, we have the Trinidad Lake State Park. But more importantly, we have Cuchara, which is the last ski resort to be developed, or that can be developed in the state of Colorado. The potential is enormous. Trust me. I was in Vail in the 70s, Aspen in the 80s, and it's coming. The same thing happened with the marijuana when it first came, and the resistance. And this town now has money, lots of money, and it can be used to make it better. It can be used, and that's all we were trying to do. Just make the town better and more receptive.
Chris, I think Chris has. Chris, go ahead.
I've got a couple of things. First off, he said that you were trying to change the roof pitch to change the aesthetics of the community. The city council wrote a code. They didn't ask to have it changed. And I don't understand why, if you know the code, why do you feel it's up to you to change it?
Why not? This is a
Because
country,
because it was voted on by the city council
and it's changed once.
Let him talk.
and the citizens. I don't if we just let everybody just come and change everything they want to, then we're defeating the point.
And if we didn't, this would be America.
Hang on, sir. Let him talk, please.
Sorry.
You know, and something else, I had so many things come to mind as this was going on. You know, we as a board have found ourselves to where if we abide by the code, it's being called arbitrary and capricious. Think about that. It's not making a change that's going to be bad. It's if we don't make a change, then it's going to be bad. And we've also found ourselves to where the recommendation has been for approval. Now, if we do something different than that, we are stepping out of the umbrella of protection, I believe. I mean, we find ourselves in a terrible spot. I don't understand why we're wasting our time so much. You know, they worked hard on a code. It is not up for everyone to just change as they want to. I mean, if that's the case, then why don't I just buy some land down in the historical district and put a water park? I mean, that's what codes are for. This was voted in. This was spent, I mean, months was spent doing this. This wasn't an overnight thing. They were given time to come and speak. Lots of time. I really don't understand. You know, rules apply. If rules don't apply, then why do we make rules? That's all I got.
Okay.
We're not arguing that rules
Anything?
don't apply,
Go ahead.
but I think what our argument was is that there was already a variance that was approved by you guys.
It was what?
There was a variance already approved to a 512.
Right.
So that's our argument, not that we're just gonna change the rules, it's just that you guys already made a decision to decrease the roof pitch. So, to a 512. So why not to a 312?
I think that was made before we were here, and there's probably a reason for it. That development, maybe the person that wants to talk here in the very near future here tonight can answer that question for you. Maybe Mr. Moderano can answer that question. I don't know.
No, once you establish a roof pitch in a development, it's just not the idea of dropping it to 312. It's the respect for the rest of the people that's already there. Look how many houses are already in that place that have a 512. They were forced to do a 512.
As we were, with 3 of the houses. So I can see what you're saying, of course.
But what I'm trying to say, you're not considering them.
I think that the house is maintaining its integrity. It's still a great house.
I know.
All that's
We're
different
not
is the
saying-
roof pitch.
We're not saying it's not a great house.
So from what I'm hearing is it's an aesthetic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. We got people that has already bought a house that has a 512. The ones that have the 612, you can always increase upward, but you can't increase downward. You don't have to have a variance to put a 612 in there. Okay, because you're going above what the 512 is. But if you want to go below the 512, then you have to get a variance. And that's not going to happen, as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
That's fine, I understand. And we're just proposing.
Any other thing that you want to bring before us?
I
Okay,
don't think so.
consider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
Are you gonna open it up?
Yes. Oh. Okay, anybody here for or against this particular application? Say your name, come forward.
Diane San Stevens. I am the owner of City View Heights Development. Commissioners, I apologize for not being there. Unfortunately, I am home sick, so I have to work over Zoom. I am opposing this variance as I have in the past. I'm hearing myself speak, as I have in the past, based on several factors that is not being mentioned tonight. My biggest concern is my home.
Speak a little bit louder.
My concern is not only the roof pitch. The concern is lowering the roof pitch also lowers property value. I don't think all the homeowners, if Mr. Francisco spoke to them, I don't think they understand this. These are first-time homeowners, the majority of them. We have approximately 30 to 40 houses in the city tonight. They do have a 512 roof pitch. By lowering that roof pitch, you create a domino effect. You lower the value. You lower the appraisal value. Not 100%, but the roof pitch has a piece of that appraisal. And I did confirm that with our county assessor. In addition to that, you might save $50,000 on the roof pitch by lowering it. But when you try to sell that house, the bank is going to reappraise that house, and you're not going to get the price you're asking. In addition, those families that are living there, due to the increase in homes today, they are also going to lose their equity in their home. And I don't think it's fair to our residents. In addition to that, I have worked with development and invested continuously. I don't build one house at a time, we build multiple houses. As I believe we received my notice, we are looking at a multi-family project coming in, 30 to 40 units. I'm just finishing up that contract, we were both Monday night on it.
Diane, we're losing you.
I'm sorry?
We're
lost you
losing
there.
your
I
audio.
lost you there for a little while.
I lost you.
Are you done?
You gotta speak into the speaker.
Are you done, Diane?
You have 2 more minutes, Diane.
No. Okay. In addition to the home values, the appraisals, the sale prices, we discourage future development in that development if those prices come down. We have developers looking at that property. I have one I'm working with right now willing to bring in 14 homes. And we are building a 512 roof pitch. This is a detriment to everyone in City View Heights to lower that roof pitch. I will tell you as to the question, when City View Heights first began, we did not have a 612 roof pitch in the code. I started putting in houses before that 612 came in. So I was granted a variance because we already had homes in there. And then the 612 roof pitch came in later on. I have attempted to contact Mr. Francisco. I understand his concern. I also face the issue of cost when I'm dealing with developers. I've tried to contact him 3 different times. He never tried to reach me. I am more than willing to work with this man. I can introduce him to people. We can share with him how we're cutting our costs to try to help him. He's welcome to call. In the meantime, I am asking you on the sake of the residents in City of View Heights and future development to deny this roof pitch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wants to come forward?
Yeah.
Come forward, say your name.
My name is Tom Larson. I live at 201 Onondaga, and I was not contacted. I am a retiree, been retired private investigator with legal background for a number of years. And the lady that I live with is also retired. We're always there. So we haven't been contacted. I have a beautiful view of Fisher's Peak. In fact, from my west deck, I have a beautiful view. I'd like to sell it for $50,000 more than what I paid for it. But it would hurt, some of us residents are concerned about a lowered roof pitch hurting the values. And I know you're not concerned with values, you have to enforce rules, but it would, it'd be an inconvenience. I'm talking to Tony's point here. He made a good point about, it's kind of an insult, almost a slap in the face by doing that. And I'm just wondering if this just isn't opening the door to more variations, I've been around the block and I've seen a lot of scams and scam artists and well, I don't have the highest opinion of developers. I trust them as far as I can pick them up and throw them. And so
we can't go by that, sir.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
That's something of your opinion. I don't want you bringing that up.
Yeah, okay. I know it's probably irrelevant to this discussion.
Yes, it is. It's very
I
relevant.
understand that. But the judge would say, out of order, Mr. Larson. But I can tell you right now, I'm not really excited about them lowering the roof pitch and and undermining the
I think
codes.
that's what we're up here to do, to listen to you on that part.
Yeah, and it just opens the door to all kinds of haphazard and construction and stuff like that. Yeah, so anyways, that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Staff.
Thank you guys for the lively discussion. So,
Gonna close it? No, not yet.
okay. Staff finds that allowing this variance wouldn't cause harm to the neighborhood or to the neighbors. There is no evidence I've found that that roof pitch lowers housing values, and I think
Well, we consider here, we're not here.
right. Well, those are some of the things brought up.
I understand
And there's only a couple things in our code, only 4 to be exact, that relate to architecture or to design. And the roof pitch is one of them. But the aesthetics of a neighborhood or of architecture are, roof pitch is one of those elements, but it's not really a defining element of architectural style. And so a roof pitch that's varied with other architectural features that are attractive has a negligible impact on neighborhood design, I find. So as you're considering this, one of the goals of the city is to provide affordable housing. Imposing an extra cost on a developer does get in the way of that goal. And that's for you to consider. The staff recommends approval.
Okay, close the hearing. Commissioners.
I have a question. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, how can staff find that it's not going to harm the neighbors whenever we have a property owner here saying that it's going to harm her? I don't understand that at all. She spoke.
I agree.
I mean, I understand that we want housing here. They have said that they are going to go ahead with this development, whether we grant them this variance or not. So what's the problem? Stick with the rules. We have a property owner here saying that everybody else has followed these rules. I don't understand. I don't understand at all. I don't understand how staff could just sit there and completely ignore this lady who went and she's sick and she still has showed up. That makes no sense to me. I apologize for that, as a matter of fact, ma'am. I feel bad. That's all I got.
Okay, commissioners. What I will say is, it's already been granted a 512. If we start doing this, you're setting a precedent. Then pretty soon it's going to be lower than a 312. We got a code, that's what we're here to follow. We're not here to follow. I'll enunciate it again. Any monetary benefits. It does have nothing to do with us up here, period. Anybody else?
If I'm in order, I'd like to move that we deny this for the simple reason is that it's a 512 and all the people in that area has a 512 or better, right in the subdivision. We're not talking about outside the subdivision. Everybody has a 512 and they've lived with that 512, and I believe that it's a slap in the face for anybody to have anything less than that, okay? And I don't want to set that precedent, and I'm not going to, and I move that we deny this situation.
I have a second on that.
I just kind of want to go on record saying, I know it's our job here to support code and things of that nature, but I've owned a lot of houses. I have never in my life, roof pitch was not anything that ever came into my mind. Well, once I was at a flat roof. I did not choose a flat roof, okay? So, I mean, this is one hell of a ditch just because, well, I disagree. I think that we should evaluate that if that was the case, but, you know, I think I'm in a
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
To deny. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made, seconded, roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Materano,
Yes.
Norris,
No.
Spain,
Here,
Yes, sir.
and Leone.
yes. Okay. Okay. Moving on. New business. Motion to request council vote to remove council member Tim Dalton. I'd like to ask a question first. Did you get a letter?
No, we requested a letter, but he never.
You never got a letter?
No.
Did you request a letter through a certified mail, or how did you request it?
No, email and phone calls.
Did you?
He was supposed to bring it in. He never did.
Can we send a certified letter?
We can, but I don't see what the point of that's gonna.
Has he come back to you
No.
in any way at all?
And he's officially only attended 2 meetings.
And I know. I'm just, I don't know if he has come back to you or not.
No. And we could only give him so much.
I understand. Thank you, people, for coming in. Mr. Larson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you may be advised to keep your eye on the paper, and you might want to send him a letter if it goes to council. It probably go to council?
Okay,
You might want to go to council,
all right.
and I definitely say that you should.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that he's only attended a couple of meetings, so I think it's.
So he never was, you were able to talk to him on the phone or anything?
I seen him the other day, and he says nothing about this. I know, actually, I'm the one that kind of brought it to the table, because you show up all the time, unless something very bad happens. I show up. Everybody shows up here.
Right.
Mr. Dalton has not put his best foot forward. You know, and I understand, if somebody is dealing with a health issue, then that needs to be brought forward, and they should ask for a leave of absence or something. He has not done anything, to my knowledge, bringing that forward. You know, I know Mr. Dalton. I will say I'm an acquaintance of Mr. Dalton. I've worked with Mr. Dalton. I seen him the other day. He brings nothing forward. It's not my job to bring it forward to him. He's already been, something has been brought to his attention saying, hey, enough's enough. And he's not putting his best foot forward by us. My opinion is we need to squash this. We don't need to burn another time on it. If he's aware, we just need to get this one and done. I mean, we've already drug it out.
Okay. All right. Motion requests Councilmember Tim Dalton to be removed. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made, Mr. Coker. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Armijo. Roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Materano,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
Leone.
Yes. Motion passed. Reports. Chairman's report. I see that they did do something down there on Elm Street. They painted that one side, and I did see one car parked there. And I don't know who would have turned them in, but I did see a policeman across the street.
Well, I haven't.
And there was nobody in the car, so I'm assuming he took a license plate. I don't know. That's a good one. I didn't see anything done on the bridge. Nothing's been done on the bridge, and I realize there ain't no farmer's market there right now, so you probably won't see that problem.
But no, I will say you won't see that problem. But what I will say is, because I went and followed up on that, when I seen that yellow line painted on Elm Street, I did go straight over to the bridge. And I won't say a name, but the gentleman that's there helping put on this small event for the less fortunate decided to park on the bridge instead of over, and nobody else, there was no other cars in that park. And where we have right next to the bank or right next to the bathrooms, we have parking places that are off street, right? Kind of turns off right across the street from the bank. So again, come on, let's do something.
Scott, you might want to bring that back up again.
I did mention it to Bob.
I did
Did
too. I went to Bob too.
And the arrows on Main Street there, going south, going east from west on the intersection between Main and Commercial. Them arrows are not, I bet you 5 times that I've been through there, 3 out of 5 times, somebody almost tried to hit the other person. You know, they've got to get them arrows in. And there's not only there.
Yeah, so West Main also.
Points,
West Main also is bad.
West Main. I mean, are they hurting for money or what is the deal?
The trees look pretty. We got all of our lights up and everything, so maybe after we've refocused our time on Christmas lights and whatnot.
You know.
That's a little bit out of my ballpark, but what I understand is that the striping, especially on Main Street, has a short shelf life because in previous winters when it snows and the plows come, they scrape the paint right off, and so we've had a hard time keeping striping with a longer life.
I can see that.
I can see that.
So like what needs to be done is when we restripe or when we repaint it to actually like cut into the concrete or into the asphalt.
It's got brick
and sink it down. Right, you know, in the parts where it's brick, that's
Brick's worse yet.
forever a challenge, perhaps.
Yeah. I agree. But West Main Street is asphalt. Where you turn up Santa Fe Trail and that, and they're need to be redone too.
I mean, that's all.
So like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's my superficial understanding.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense with the weather.
Yeah.
I would see that
Not this
painting
winter
would happen You know, I would see that the painting would be like a seasonal type thing, how it's going to be,
Right.
you know, strategically
I
planned.
just hate to see somebody get hurt there.
Yeah.
That's the way it looks.
Okay,
And I meant no disrespect by that, because the city does look beautiful with all the lights.
commissioners' reports. Mr. Norris,
Nothing to report.
I don't have anything to report.
Mr. Armijo,
I move that we adjourn.
hang on a minute. Planning director report.
So you guys have in your inboxes a report that I've been working on for about a month now. It's an analysis of the survey on land use and housing that I put out a while back.
It's in our inbox.
I'm still, it's still a little bit in draft form. It's good enough to start using, but I am going to be making a few edits and then share with you a final version soon.
When did you put it in?
Right before this meeting.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, I was kind of burning the oil to the last minute there, making a few improvements there. So anyway, that's in your inbox. It's organized into a number of chapters or sections that look at these different areas in the code that pertain to housing, and that could be a potential way to stimulate housing and some of the other goals in the comprehensive plan. And how I would like to approach this is one piece at a time. So not try to look at the whole code and do everything all at once, but just one incremental topic at a time. Each section is brings in from the survey what's relevant, and brings in from the comprehensive plan what's relevant, and it's also a critique of our code and how we might think about it. Each section ends with a set of questions, not a set of recommendations. And so those questions are to guide a conversation and to stimulate sort of a way of thinking about and approaching what changes we may propose. So I'll put on the agenda for next month the first topic in there, which is ADUs. I think ADUs are an easier topic to tackle because it's already been established that we intend to have them, that we already have them in the code, they're in the comprehensive plan. They're in some ways one of the least controversial aspects of our code. It's like, yeah, we agree that ADUs are something that we want, and we're not really getting them. I think since we've written that, not one has been built as such. Under the code, I mean, we have a lot of people who've converted old houses into essentially ADUs, but under the code, that hasn't happened. So in a sense, we might say it's not succeeding in generating ADUs. So what I'd like you guys to do is to look at that, look at the questions that follow the section on ADUs, answer those, and I think those will provide those will provide a context for conversation, which we can then send to council as your contribution, or what you'd like to see. I think it would be most effective or most meaningful if we don't go for the nitty-gritty of wordsmithing at this point, but we go for like the larger goals and intentions, and we send that to council and let them do the wordsmithing. The details of exactly what words should be changed. But I think from you guys, a useful, meaningful recommendation should be the larger goals, the big picture. And if we can, depict a clear and precise big picture, then I think council will know what to do with it.
So depending on what we have on our next meeting, then we want to have that at the last part,
Yeah, I think so.
because we want to have it at the very last part.
Yeah, and it depends. I think going forward over the next, probably 6 months or so, as we take one little piece at a time. We may want to call it an extra work session from time to time, depending on the topic, depending on your mood, on how much there is to say. We'll see next month how it goes. If it's an easy consensus, or if there's a lot of debate, or if we even reach the point of having something that you agree upon to send to council. I hope that that you may come and come with similar enough or agreeable enough ideas with each other that process can get moving sooner than later. But it may take longer, it may take more time. So I'm optimistic that we'll come together next month, bring together what you bring to the table, and have a discussion and send those results off to council.
I have to let Mr. Spain come in. I missed him. He had his hand up. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, I do have a small little bit of a report. I spoke with several veterans, and they wish to thank the city for a very great veterans dinner, and they're very grateful for it. They appreciated it. I've also spoke with several people, and they want to let y'all know that the city looks beautiful. Thank y'all for all y'all's efforts on decorating and making the holidays this year, despite all of our COVID and everything that we've had going on, that it really brings the season out, and they just want the city to know that they appreciate them. I'd also like to tell the committee that I do apologize for not being able to be there again. I have been dealing with health issues, and honestly, I thought that all my coughing and sneezing would be a disturbance in person, so I felt like I could be better served here, being able to mute myself. And I hope that my health will improve and I will be able to be there in person next month. I appreciate all of y'all. Thank y'all very much.
I appreciate you, Chris. I have to apologize. I wasn't looking at the monitor. And
Don't
that's
even
my
worry
fault.
about the small stuff. Thank you very much, sir.
And so I'm going to apologize to you, and thank you for bringing that forward to us. Thank you very much. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second. Second.